what did I just read? This is Twilight, which is one of the most best-selling books of all time. It sold over 120 million copies, and I just finished reading it. I guess the reason I read it is largely because it's so popular, but also because despite the fact that it's so popular, there's also so many people who hate it, and yet there's so many people who love it. And so when I hear so many varied opinions on one book, it immediately makes me want to read that book. That is the primary reason why I read The Wheel of Time, and I'm really enjoying The Wheel of Time. But this is way different. This story is about the 17-year-old girl called Bella who moves to the city in Washington, and she goes to a new school. And there she meets this guy called Edward, whom she falls in love with, but she finds out soon enough that he is a vampire. Well, I did not like this book at all. First of all the characters are terrible. There was not a single character that I liked, except maybe Alice. But all the rest of the characters were terrible. Edward was terrible, Jacob was terrible, everyone was terrible. Especially the main character, Bella. She lies to everyone about everything for no reason at all. She lies to her father, to her friends, to basically everyone, about all these little things for basically no reason. Now, there's this book called 1984. It's a classic, and I read that recently, and it was a very, very good book. Not the greatest, but still, a very good book. And the main character in 1984 was an even worse person than any of the characters in Twilight. And yet I still liked 1984, but I didn't like Twilight. Why is that? Well, that's because in 1984, you're not supposed to like the main character. He's a terrible person on purpose, and the author did it for a reason. But in Twilight, you're supposed to like all these main characters, but they're just horrible people. It felt like all of them basically had one character trait, and that's all. They were so predictable. There wasn't really much to unearth about them. They were just very basic and shallow and surface level characters that I didn't really care for and that I didn't like either. So it takes Bella about 200 pages to actually consider the fact that Edward is a vampire. And like, if I had met Edward, I'm sure I would have thought of vampires a long time before that. Like, it takes Bella so long for the word vampires to come to mind when it seems just so obvious from the way that Edward acts that he is a vampire. Also, there was one thing in this book that I actually laughed out loud at. So on page 14, Bella's just talking about how she's really nervous for this new school and stuff. And she's saying, "I can do this," I lied to myself feebly. "No one was going to bite me." You sure no one's going to bite you? And then I just underlined that and wrote, "That's ironic," next to it. There is a family of vampires in this school, and you expect that no one's going to bite you? No one was going to bite her. You sure about that? And then the thing that I hated the most about this book is the vampires in it. Or should they even be called vampires? Because whatever they are in this book, they're not vampires. Sure, they're very pale-skinned, and they're immortal, and they have to drink blood to survive, but really, most of the similarities between this and vampires end there. Apparently, the whole thing with sun turning vampires to dust is a complete myth for some reason, and instead, vampires apparently sparkle in the sunlight, their skin like glitters in the sunlight, and this just seems so absurd to me, because the original conception of vampires is that they are evil. Vampires are evil, soulless creatures. They are demons. And then in here, they paint vampires in a good light. And like vampires were originally, in the original novel, Dracula, vampires were a picture of the Antichrist, how Christ shed his blood for us, but vampires take our blood away from us, and how they turn to dust and sunlight because evil cannot be touched by light without crumbling to dust. But then in this book, vampires just glitter in the sunlight for some reason. And that was just so stupid. Vampires are evil creatures. In the one scene where Bella finds out that the one scene where Bella finds out that Edward was a vampire was so absurd as well. It went kind of like this.
Hey, so I did some research and I was wondering if you were like one of those things that's called vampires? Oh yes, I am a vampire actually. My whole family is.
Really, I didn't realize I was right. Well, that's wonderful.
Being a vampire is kind of horrible, but you know, me and my family are vegetarian vampires because we only drink blood from animals and not from humans.
That's good.
It's still kind of horrible to be a vampire.
Wait, but then don't you, like, crumble to dust in the sunlight?
Oh no, that's a myth.
Do you sleep in coffins?
No, that's a myth as well for completely no reason at all. Vampires actually never sleep. I haven't slept for about 90 years.
Okay, I'm kind of mildly surprised that you're a vampire.
Yeah, well, I immediately gave away my identity to you really quickly for some reason. And, you know, maybe I really should have, like, kept the information to myself, but for no reason at all, I just let you know pretty quickly that I was a vampire.
How come in the 90 years of your existence no one has noticed that your family are vampires?
Oh, this book never addresses that. Sorry.
Alright.
That is basically exactly how their conversation went. Another thing is that whatever Bella feels for Edward, it's not love. I feel like whenever Bella was thinking about Edward, it didn't feel like she was actually in love with him. It felt like it felt like her desire for the possession of a thing. Edward is almost like an idol to her, and it doesn't feel like she actually loves him. He's basically her idol and not someone that she actually loves. Not to mention that whenever Edward and Bella had a conversation that lasted for more than 10 minutes, they got really mad at each other. Also, in a scene near the end of this book, when they're driving in a car, Bella is talking about how she can see Edward's reflection in the mirror, but vampires can't be seen in mirrors, and they don't cast shadows either. And it was said earlier in this book that vampires sleeping in coffins and turning to dust in the sunlight was all a myth, but then, as far as I can remember, it was never said that it's a myth that vampires can't be seen in the mirror. So I was like really confused there. Can they be seen in mirrors or can they not? But then, the complete worst part of this book was near the ending, when Bella wants to become a vampire so she can marry Edward. And it's like, no matter how much you love someone, why would you subject yourself to an eternal life of torture for that? Who in their right mind would actually want to become a vampire? Bella really needs someone to talk some sense into her. Now, for the most part, this book was just complete garbage, but I can say the one part that I did like was the beginning. The beginning was well set up. It had a strong hook, and this book had a promising beginning, but it all goes downhill from there. This book was terrible. It doesn't teach any good morals at all or anything. In fact, I didn't even know what exactly the message of it was. It was kind of hard to tell. Was it just a story meant to entertain someone? What was the actual message of the book, if there was any? Other than that, I didn't feel any emotion at all while reading this book, besides cringiness. Bella has, like, what, an IQ of 8? Now, with all that being said, I'm still reading more of this series because I am interested in the story. I want to see where this whole story ends up, how all this stuff is going to end. So, I'm going to keep on reading this series. I don't know if I'm going to finish it. Maybe I will. Probably I will. Because I am still interested to see how this whole story ends. But this book was just not good. This is probably one of the worst, if not the worst, books that I have ever read. And I cannot imagine how this sold 120 million copies. How did this become one of the most best-selling books of all time? I do not understand it at all. I did not like this book. It was horrible. But I'm still reading the rest of the series out of nothing else than just interest to see where the story will end or how it will end. Maybe in the vain hope that it will somehow get better since it's such a popular book series. But I don't know. So, there you go. That is my review of the 8th or 9th most best-selling book of all time. It's garbage. I don't recommend you read it at all. But thanks for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. And for now, farewell.